Roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead?
I know I mixed it up tonight.
Here.
Mr. Valencia?
Present.
Mrs. Flores?
Here.
Mr. Lara?
Here.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Ryan, I heard it say that the recording stopped.
It did, but the YouTube is on. We're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We are reconvening from closed session, and our report out includes on item A, public employee performance evaluation. Information was shared. Item B, conference with labor negotiators regarding CSEA, and information was shared regarding that. And as well as for item C, conference with labor negotiators, SMEA, information was shared. Tonight, do we have a Pledge of Allegiance by a school? I don't have that information. I'm not.
No, we do. Mr. Humphrey from Taylor Elementary is here this evening.
I'm so, my apologies.
In the Pledge of Allegiance and then share the Taylor inspiration that I have seen, and it is truly inspirational. So I'll turn it over to you, Sam.
Thank you for the correction there, and welcome, Mr. Humphrey. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. So we'll turn it over to you.
All right, so for our Pledge of Allegiance, everyone could please stand and find the nearest flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Sam Humphrey. I get to be the principal at Taylor Elementary School. We have queued up for you our Friday virtual HOW. It's been a tradition at Taylor as a end of the week celebration and recognition for our students that we've taken virtually. And we've got a lot of hardworking staff, students, and parents overcoming a lot of unique challenges throughout the week. And so Friday gets to be a pretty fantastic, well-received bookend to celebrate and recognize our students and hardworking staff. So I think our friend, Mr. Ricky, might have that queued up. He's gonna fast forward a couple spots so we're not subjected to the entire 15 minutes. And as a disclaimer, if you wanna join the HOW at the end and liven up your Wednesday night, feel free. I know that's Luke's favorite part. Yeah, I can see him ready already. Okay, Mr. Ricky, whenever he's gonna fast forward a couple spots so we're not subjected to the entire 15 minutes. And as a disclaimer, if you wanna join the HOW at the end and liven up your Wednesday night.
You know what that means?
Feel free.
We got
our Luke's favorite part.
weekly Taylor Friday HOW celebration.
Okay, Mr. Ricky,
recognizing the strong choices.
Fast forward a couple
community
spots
are
so we're not subjected to the entire 15
Happy
minutes.
Friday, everybody.
And as a
We're
disclaimer, if
super
you
hard
want to
this
join
week. We
the HOW at
appreciate
the
you,
end,
and we're going to
liven up
use
your
this
Wednesday
chance.
night.
You know what that means?
Feel
Together
free.
virtually and celebrate.
Luke's favorite
We're
part.
going to
Yeah,
kick
see
it off
him
right
ready.
with HOW celebration.
Okay,
Taylor
Mr. Ricky,
Bookstore
winners. Fast forward a couple
Your name's on here.
spots
About
so
to
we're not
make it.
subjected
Shout
to the
out
entire
here.
15
Hey,
minutes.
Mr. Patterson.
And
Think
as a
about
disclaimer, if
one
you
hard
want to
this
join
week.
the
We
HOW at
appreciate
the
you.
end,
I'm going
liven
to
up
use
your
this
Wednesday
chance.
night.
You know what that means?
Feel free.
Together virtually and
Luke's
celebrate.
favorite
We're
part.
going
Yeah,
to kick
see
it
him
off
ready.
right with HOW celebration.
Taylor
Thank you.
Bookstore winners.
Fast forward a couple.
Your name's on
Didn't know if that was just me or everybody.
I'm hoping that was not just me as well.
I'm really glad
I
that
didn't have to
wasn't
hear
just
your
me.
voice one time, let alone on loop.
We will try that again.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, happy Friday morning. You know what that means? We got our weekly Taylor Friday HOW celebration, chance for us to recognize all the strong choices our Timberwolves community are making. Happy Friday, everybody. Been working super hard this week. We appreciate you, and we want to use this chance to get together virtually and celebrate you. We're going to kick it off with our Taylor Bookstore winners. If your name's on here, you're about to get a shout out here. Hey, Mr.
Then, per Mr. Humphrey, we're jumping forward.
Elise Cortez and Zoe Sanchez.
Nailed it, Mr. Patterson. Sound of applause for all of our friends out there Great job getting selected by your teacher, making strong choices in the classroom and helping our school community. You're going to see Miss Paz be able to pick out an extra special book out of our very own Taylor bookstore. Nice work. And if you haven't followed us, had your parents and family followed us, you can find us on social media. It's probably the best follow in town. Special shout out to Miss Garcia for running this. We're on Twitter, we're on Insta, we're on Facebook. See all the happenings, the news, and exciting things we've got going on in our Taylor school community. Thanks again, Miss Garcia, for doing this. And we have our own student-run 6th grade Taylor Twitter team. It's a lot of alliteration. They're starting to meet weekly here to help post some student-run social media about our school. Great work. All right, you know what it is. Your favorite time of the day. It's a Taylor ticket raffle with the incomparable Mr. Patterson. I'm going to hand it over to you, Mr. Patterson.
Oh my gosh, so excited. Friday, these 9 winners. Make sure sometime this morning you can come right after this, or you can come at recess. Come visit Miss Garcia. She's back. She's awesome. She's doing all of that stuff on social media, but she's also going to hand out prizes to these 9 awesome students. So without any further ado, if you want to just in your own room quietly do a little drum roll, that's perfectly acceptable. Teachers, if you don't want that, that's also acceptable. All right, here we go for Miss Martin's class, Maria Mendoza. From Miss Lesore's class, we have Dakota. And from Miss Maycott's class, we have Amen. Congratulations, you 3. Oh, this got a first-time winner for this class. From Miss Litvinchuk, Linus Gleason. From Miss Jeffers' class, Elisa Alamia. And from Miss Latronica's class, Danny. Congratulations on that. And then our final 3 winners, we have Samantha G from Mr. Yolar's class. We have Nathan C from Mr. Rowe's class. And we have Christiana Hill from Miss Evans' class. Congratulations, you 9 students. Keep up the good work, being safe, responsible, and respectful out on campus. Your efforts are greatly appreciated.
Right on. And Mr. Patterson, you want them heading over your way sometime today to pick up their prize for making strong choices?
Yep.
Okay. Nice work. All right. The Taylor Learner Profile is a special sneak peek. I know we get a lot of recognition, promotion, and reinforcement for important things like being safe, responsible, and respectful. Coming up in the upcoming weeks, we're really building suspense on this. We're going to be promoting a lot of skills that's not going to help you only in the classroom as a Taylor Timberwolf, but once you go to junior high, once you get into college, and once you get into the career to be able to help solve some of the world's problems, you're going to start building those skills right here with our Taylor School community. So much more to come. The Taylor Learning Profile coming soon. Dude.
Awesome. So excited. And part of our success, boys and girls, part of our success is how we treat each other. It's really difficult to be successful academically or socially with our friends or in our future if we are unable to be kind to people. So let's just talk a little bit about kindness. There's so much kindness out there. It's so simple. It is so awesome. I got to tell you, when I walk across campus, and I'm going to just speak for Mr. Humphrey, and he can't say no to this, but when we walk across campus, whether it's during recess or at lunch, or we walk into your classrooms, and you guys all wave and say hi, it absolutely makes our day. It just like puts a smile on our face, and we just enjoy it so much. And we see the smile on your face. You guys are being kind, and if you can be kind to us, you can be kind to everybody. And it's not that hard. And so you'll see here, one little mantra, just be really easy to tell your friends is, dude, be kind. Be kind. Because there are many ways that we can be kind. And unfortunately, we often look at ways that we can't be kind. So Mr. Humphrey, on the next slide.
Dude, be kind from Mr. Patterson. All right, you know what time it is. We've got the locally famous. Let me make sure I can find Mr. DiCarlo here. Make sure he's on with us. All right, Mr. DiCarlo, you want to see if you can unmute yourself for me?
Ready.
Hey, all right, so we got the earthquaking, air conditioner shaking, history making, locally famous Taylor Howl being led by Mr. DeCarlo and our 6th graders. I'll hand it off to you, Mr. DeCarlo.
All right, you guys ready? Yeah. Come on, are you ready? Yeah. That's better. Okay. When I say Taylor, you say school. Taylor. Taylor. When I say timber, you say wolves. Timber. Timber. Taylor Timberwolves.
Ow!
Okay.
There it is. This is the best 12 minutes on a Friday. It's as good as it gets. Everybody have a wonderful rest of finish up this week strong, making good choices, and be kind. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you out there. Miss Martin's class, I'm heading over to your class for a read aloud.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, Mr. Humphrey. That's great.
Thank you, everyone, for letting us share that. Appreciate being here.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Humphreys. Very nice to see you and meet you finally, too.
If I may, before
Thank you.
Mr. Humphrey leaves, I want to just to call out some of the wonderful things that I saw taking place. I love the enthusiasm that Mr. Humphrey expressed. I think that energy is contagious. I really appreciated the social media presence that you all are encouraging, because we know so many of our families and even students use those platforms. I really appreciated seeing books as prizes. I think that's a wonderful way to reinforce, right, a love of learning early on. I love the video format. I'm assuming that students could see this in their classrooms. All students could see this, presumably at the same time. I love that, and I would love to see more of that happening at our schools. I really appreciate when you said building skills to solve the world's problems. A lot of times our students feel disconnected in terms of the relevance of why they're learning something. So I appreciate how intentional you are there. And then I think I caught at the very end that you were going to be doing read aloud in a classroom. How wonderful is that? Because oftentimes we don't get to see administrators in the classrooms, given how busy you all folks typically can be. So I just really want to say congratulations, Mr. Humphrey, for the wonderful work that I see happening right now at your school.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you. And please pass on our kudos to your students and staff. Thank you. And calendar of upcoming meetings and events. We have a special board meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 27th. I'm hoping it's at 6 p.m. We're assuming that.
Yeah, that's actually a regularly scheduled meeting. We adopted that at the.
Oh, okay. Well, it is a.
We've traditionally have set it up to do a study session. We'll be reviewing our ESSER plan. We may have some regular agenda items as well.
Okay, and then our November meeting will be on November 10th at 6 p.m. Public comment. Comments on agenda items.
We have no comments on agenda items. We do have comments on non-agenda items this evening.
Okay.
Because of the change in AB 630 or 361, which I'll be going over later in the meeting. We have some folks that we're going to admit in to share their comments. I did have one that was submitted to be read, and in the transition, I want to go ahead and do that. They were unable to get on. We had some others that requested to have their comments read, but they're actually in the room waiting to come in. So
all right.
What I'd like to do is read the written comment first, and then we'll let the folks in to make their live comments. So I'm going to hand you all a copy of what I'm reading. Well, 10. And so this is submitted. Oh, wait, let me get around.
I think we're short one.
Oh,
Did somebody get two?
there's another one.
Oh.
I got it.
Okay, here you go.
Thank you. So this is a collective statement from the Tommy Kuntz Junior High School staff. The names are listed. I won't read the names when I get done, but it was submitted by Kimberly Johnson on behalf of the staff. And it reads, Thank you for hearing our concerns as parents, teachers, and community members. It's been a challenging year, but we believe we have an opportunity to make some logical, proactive, and long overdue changes in our approach to student safety. Tonight, we would like to express a concern for our need for supervision, security cameras, and a bully button, similar to the one used by the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District to deter vandalism and promote communication from students about unsafe behaviors they are witnessing or have information about on our junior high campuses. It cannot be overstated what an asset our site administration, Dr. Williams, Dr. Martinez, and Ms. Dubois have been for our school. Students know them and are greeted by them daily. They spend countless hours creating a positive campus community and making all students feel like they belong. However, regardless of how amazing they are, regardless of how involved and generous we are as staff of our non-contracted time to supervise students before, after school, and on our duty-free lunch, we are falling short in providing the oversight necessary to manage the behavior of over 1,000 middle school students and keep them accountable for the behaviors a finite amount of scanning eyes on supervision during the day cannot see. In addition to increased supervisory staff on campus during school hours, we also need to employ a bully button like the one Pioneer Valley High School has on the upper right-hand corner of their school website. Students are encouraged to use this anonymous reporting system to alert administrators and counselors of unsafe behaviors witnessed on campus. It's a valuable tip line. We are a feeder for the high school district. It would make sense for us to have the same safety, security, and online communication measures in place for students to report bullying, unsafe, and inappropriate behaviors. Our campus is often vandalized during non-school hours, and we don't have any surveillance cameras to gather evidence to prosecute or to deter the perpetrators from vandalism and destruction of property in the first place. Students then have to come to a school campus with broken outdoor bulletin boards, vandalized walls and classroom doors, and shattered windows. Money our district spends reactively on delayed repairs to the destruction and vandalism could be spent proactively with outdoor security cameras. We encourage you to visit our junior high campuses, speak to staff, and see for yourselves the need for outdoor cameras. Video was a good deterrent when a fight broke out and mob mentality ensued. We would like also to encourage you to visit local high schools and see how they use cameras as part of their safety and security plan. The camera's presence alone would deter destructive, unkind, and outright criminal behavior. At this point, intruders come on our campuses by jumping the fences, destroy and vandalize property, consume illicit substances, and face zero consequences. We must do better. Thank you for your time. And it's signed by the undersigned, and the names are there. So now we're going to try this public comment format. And Maggie, can you see that list?
Yes, I can see the list of attendees.
No, the list of commenters. Do you have that, Brian? Please. Please, admit Mr. Claudio, please. Do you see him, Linda? Octavio Claudio?
What am I looking for?
He's on the second page.
Oh, hello.
He's got rabbit ears on him. Oh my God.
to my iPad. Okay, this is a little embarrassing. I'll fix this. Okay,
it's all good. It's all right. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You're a dad. It's okay.
Oh, I know, right? Jeez.
It's all right. That's what dads do. It's okay.
I have my oldest daughter helping me out with this. Jeez.
Ay, ay, ay.
It's good.
You know,
there you go.
I've seen this a lot on going viral. It happened to be me now. Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity for me to speak in front of the panel. First of all, I'd like to thank you, everybody, because I know the pandemic has affected everybody, not just us as parents, but teachers, directors, all the board members. I know that it's been tough for everybody, but I want to get to the point as I'm short on time, and I'm sure you guys are all as well. I've emailed the board in relates to an accident that had occurred recently at our nearby school street. It's very alarming to find out that our school it's very poor on crossing guards, very poor on staffing. Uh, I don't want to blame all of this to the school board nor the school itself or its staff, because I do understand that a lot of this comes from from parents as well. The lack of education the parents have, the impatient parents while picking up and dropping off their kids. Uh, Through all these years that my daughter's been attending to a Fairland school, I've noticed impatient parents picking up and dropping off their kids, honking at one another, cussing at one another because someone's blocking another vehicle. And it's just become a nightmare to the point where my wife and myself have been personally involved, unintentionally causing anybody no discomfort whatsoever. But for some reason, we happen to be blocking a vehicle on the drop off and pickup lane. And recently, about a month and a half ago, my wife was involved in an incident very concerning to the point where the other person was backing out and literally ramming her vehicle towards my wife's vehicle, and our newborn was inside that vehicle. So I reached out to Miss Alvarez, which she was really, took the time and went through all these, cases with me in regards to what can be done. And she called out the officer the next day, and things seem to be calmed down. I'd like to see if maybe on our next meeting we can speak about this, because I've been through other schools just to see what it's feel like, and it's pretty much about the same through all the schools that I've been to. On my email, I specified Joe Nightingale here in Orchid, and the vibe there is a little bit different. For some reason, the staff is out there helping out to move the traffic, for the traffic to flow a lot, better. I'd like to implement that maybe in our schools. That way, we can avoid accidents in the future or confrontation with parents, and causing something that we may regret in the future. So I'd like to see if maybe we can, spare some time more in the future to talk more about this. And I appreciate you guys the time for the opportunity for speaking in front of the panel. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, sure. Donna.
Just briefly, my guess is it looks like Mr. Claudio was waiting for a response. So I think maybe with some of the folks, maybe Mr. Raymond will probably know, but for some of the other folks, maybe they may not have heard the reading of the process, maybe just that appears to be the case, maybe just assure them.
Okay. I'm not seeing him. I did say thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. So.
Oh, you mean as far as not getting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
the,
kind of waiting.
Yeah,
the,
would you like me to recite that, Linda? It's not on our agenda tonight. Normally there's an introduction to public comments normally
Right.
for those that are on, and it's not part of our agenda for whatever reason. And so the public comment section is designed for the public to comment on issues before the board. These are all non-agenda items, so the board will not take action, will not respond to the board, may direct staff to respond in writing. Each commenter has 3 minutes to address the issue with the total time on any topic not to exceed 15 minutes. So I apologize. I was looking for that as well, and for what on the printed agenda it didn't come out. Oh, it's on the other side. Yeah. Okay.
In the same place that has the calendar.
Got it. So for those that comment in the
Okay.
future, those are the parameters around our public comments. And so, Brian, who's our next commenter? Mr. John Raymond.
Is he on the phone?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, hi. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk tonight. It's been a while. And all I would like to say is in the future is that we can open this up a little further, like for public hearings and that down the road. You know, when you have a public hearing, if we have a question or something, that we'd be able to make comments live instead of submitting it like we have in the past for the last year or so. And I want to say thank you to everybody in administration for all the help and consideration we've been going through. I mean, it's a tough year. I know that. And I just hope you open up the board meeting soon for people to come in and sit down and talk. And that's all I had to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at the list, Brian. I don't see our other submitters.
I don't even see a list.
Well, we have a spreadsheet that comes in on the form that you don't have access to.
Okay.
Or we're monitoring the comments so that we can bring them in. Okay. We did have a comment submitted by Kayla Ellman, who's a physical education teacher at Battles Elementary. Would you like me to read it? I'm happy to read it if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And so the comment reads, I, Ms. Kayla Ellman, speak as one of the Battles physical educators for the 800 plus students who receive physical education instruction. We thank you for continuing to support SMBSD physical education. At Battles, our vision for PE is to inspire each child to move well, be confident in their skills and character, and be kind to themselves and others for the rest of their life. To accomplish this vision, we need the same support as classroom teachers, quality equipment for every student, professional learning opportunities and collaboration from high-quality physical education teachers, and safe working areas like shade and access to even fields/courts. Quality equipment for every student means each PE teacher at each site has access to class sets of 36 pieces of equipment that relate to each of the physical education standards. This also looks like cones and other markings to safely direct student movement. The equipment, like a textbook, is a tool to support a student's growth to meet their grade level standards. PE equipment can be expensive, but our connections with Gopher Sport allow for bulk order discounts to maximize the amount of equipment for the cost. Professional learning opportunities and collaboration from highly qualified physical education teachers look like TOSAs. Thank you to Kurt Payne. Opportunities to attend state and local PE conferences, time to collaborate and learn from our SMBSD PE teachers. We have been able to meet more frequently this year and appreciate hearing ideas from our colleagues as we discuss best practices, share material related to our standards, and decide on best practices for assessment as they relate to our students. Safe working areas include access to professional office spaces, groomed, leveled fields, neatly paved and marked courts, and adequate shade to prevent heat-related illnesses. I have experienced hip pain due to walking on uneven surfaces and currently visit a physical therapist to manage the pain. The uneven surfaces make it more challenging for students to develop skills like running, dribbling, and coordination. Additionally, my site has little to no shade, making my risk of skin cancer greater and students' risk of heat-related illness increase. Solutions include offerings of shade structures by applying for grants like the American Academy of Dermatology. As a physical education teacher, I proudly serve my students and desire their learning environment to also reflect the passion I have for their success. Thank you, Ms. Kayla Ellman, Battles Elementary. And then the last comment is submitted by Feli Reyes. Hello, I wanted to add a topic to today's meeting if possible. Our district has always talked about equity with our children to provide for our children and what they need. I have heard that our children will not be offered honors math or English anymore. Why? My daughter is a 10th grader attending Santa Maria High School, and I could tell that by her taking Algebra 1 for 7th and 8th grade, it has opened many doors for her in high school. I feel like our kids should be getting what they need at this point. I feel like equality than equity. I want our kids to have a challenge in education. These classes make them more competitive applications for college. I have family and friends that have kids attending in our neighboring districts, and they are offering honors, math, and English. Why not our children? I also have never been informed about this change until I asked, why haven't we as parents got notified that this was being removed? I hope that you as a member to our school district board will see that we need to challenge our children. We need to see what is best for our kids. Thank you, Feli Reyes. And that concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to those who submitted and participated in public comment. We will move along now to the approval of the agenda as presented. I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it has been moved by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Lara to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Actions proposed, for the consent agenda are consistent, are consistent with adopted policies and approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. They will be acted upon by roll call vote in one motion without discussion unless members of the board request an item's removal from the consent agenda, in which it will be taken up in the order indicated on the main agenda. Is there a motion?
I second.
A motion was made by Mr. Hollinshead.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. I can't see your mouth moving.
Oh, I thought I was looking at you. You have to pull my mask down?
Oh, I'm sorry. It has been moved by Mr. Hollinshead, seconded by Mrs. Flores to approve the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 7, action items. Item 7A, Resolution 21-03, Declaration of October 23rd through 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week. Ms. Dutra?
That's me. Good evening, board members, member of the public, superintendent. This is a resolution that Santa Maria Bonita supports the statewide Red Ribbon Week campaign, which we all know it's an annual resolution. It's about making good choices so that our students can be college and career ready, which is in direct alignment of our vision for student success. So we're asking the board to adopt the submitted resolution.
Questions? Mr. Valencia.
Ms. Dutra, I'm really glad to hear that our district is supporting Red Ribbon Week and activities to help our students gain awareness about how drugs can be detrimental to their future prospects. One of my first questions is, what does this look like in our schools? So for example, what are some of the activities? What are some of the educational programs? What type of research are we using to support these efforts to ensure that our students are getting good information on how to hopefully live drug-free lifestyles?
So I think that question expands beyond Red Ribbon Week, right? So Red Ribbon Week, I don't think we're doing deep research and study on that. It's a national reminder of this is something that we believe, we repledge that we're going to make good choices, right? What schools do is up to the schools. We provide ribbons, they're done through our ORMs. So kids get the ribbons, and what schools do with that is different site by site. What I can definitely tell you is that it probably looks a little bit different this year, as everything does, right? But it's the very typical things that you do at elementary schools or at a K-8 district. They do Spirit Week type things where they're designing posters. They might have different dress up days. If you've been in elementary, we've been doing Sock It to Drugs forever, where you wear crazy socks or shade out drugs and you wear sunglasses, all those kinds of things. I know that one of our schools is doing that because I couldn't figure out why all the kids were wearing sunglasses walking to school. Then it dawned on me. So they do a variety of activities this week, right? And it's usually around kind of that spirit building, make good choices, but all year long, that's the kind of conversations we're having with kids. It was formally taught through DARE, but as we move into a new era, we'll be looking at what does that look like in our district, and how we support kids in having a comprehensive program where this is included in that. We do also have programs that we already have in our schools that teachers are using. So it depends school by school, but there's quite a bit to that answer. I'll keep it as succinct as possible.
Thank you for that context, Ms. Dutra, because I mean, that's what's really important is I've heard of some research that essentially was saying that the DARE approach to helping to keep our kids drug-free was not a very effective approach or left a lot of room for improvement. So if that's the case, what research I'm wondering is out there that can help us to maximize the chances, right, that our young people will live drug-free lifestyles, which I know is a major challenge, right, for youth all across the country and across the world. But I just want to make sure that we're using cutting edge research to attack this very heavy and difficult topic.
So if I can interject, we're kind of getting off of the agenda item. And part of the Brown Act is we would discuss what's on the item. This is just the resolution acknowledging the week of October 23rd as Red Ribbon Week. We can bring back a much more comprehensive discussion item or information item on social emotional learning. That's the basis of our district-wide staff development day that we're doing on November 1st and that we're hoping to build from to get away from doing the one-time events. So this item itself really isn't about DARE. It's just about the recognition nationwide that this is the one week that we really concentrate, that sending that message. But to Melissa's point, it's something that we got to be doing every day. Mm-hmm. To your point, Ricardo, it's how do we build a better community? Because particularly in an elementary district, saying no to drugs on a K-5 campus infrequently happens because they're young children. It's more of a community issue, right? So in my experience in middle schools and high schools has been drugs come in from the community. This is within our schools. We really want to focus and support that message. So again, this item is really around just this resolution around declaring that week as Red Ribbon Week and really nothing more.
Great. I would appreciate some follow-up on that at future meetings to see, how do we approach this issue? Thank you.
October 23rd to the 31st as Red Ribbon Week for the San Benito School District as presented.
I'll second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Mora, to adopt resolution 21-03, declaration of October 23 through 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week for the San Benito School District. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero.
Aye.
Aye. Item 7B, Resolution 21-04. A resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Maria Bonita School District authorizing the sale and issuance of not to exceed $50 million aggregate principal amount of general obligation refunding bonds in one or more series approving the forms of authorizing an execution and delivery of one or more escrow agreements, bond purchase agreements, and continuing disclosure certificates, approving the form of one or more official statements, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents and certificates and related actions. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cordero. That resolution title is a mouthful. There's a lot that has to occur in sequence and in the right order as a part of the process of doing a refunding. I want to really quickly, before I hand it off to Mr. Barrissey and Mr. Bauer to talk to you tonight, I just want to give credit to the teams that helped put this together. Mr. Barrissey and his team at Raymond James, Adam Bauer and Jason Chung at Fieldman Roll-App do their work to make sure we're ready for market. But behind the scenes are our friends at ORIC. They're the ones who put together the many pages of documents that were provided to you over the weekend to review to make sure that they describe fairly and adequately for investors to step into the market and purchase our bonds, and make sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed to go forward without a hitch. So I know that Mr. Barrissey has a presentation he wants to share. I don't see either Mr. Barrissey or Mr. Bauer coming off of mute or showing their camera. I see John coming in now, so that's great. So if they can, again, kind of the goal of this funding is, as always, when you like to refinance your home, is to save money. A general obligation bond is an obligation of the taxpayer, right? So it's our community that will reap the benefits from this refunding. And the reason that what this document does is set up options is so that we can have the greatest flexibility to take advantage of market conditions as they present themselves. So I see John, you're ready. If you could, please share with us what we have going on.
Great.
Okay, great. We're going to turn it over to Adam to start, but good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Great. And hopefully folks can see the presentation on the screen now, the cover page. Okay, great. Thank you. So as Mr. Beecher has mentioned, we are looking at the possibility of refinancing a series of bonds. Both John and I have split this presentation up, so we're each covering about 2 slides. So it'll be pretty brief. The format is very similar to what you've seen in the past. And just in case, my name is Adam Bauer, and we also have Jason Chung from Fieldman Roll-App and Associates here. Okay. So on our first slide, what we've shown here is on the top is your 2 series of outstanding bonds and or your outstanding general obligation bonds. And we're showing just some of the general stats about them, like when they're issued. This is a good thing when they say KIBs here versus CABs. So you have current interest bonds. That is a more traditional kind of lower cost approach to issuing debt. Average coupon, this is what investors see, and they have a payment that they're going to receive on the principal amount of bonds. Your payment ratios are already pretty good. So anything below 2, I think overall is considered pretty good repayment ratio. And so you're really looking just to be able to refinance these and save more for your taxpayers than previously. So to the middle section there of this chart, what we're showing on the left are tax rate per $100,000 of assessed value. And then what we're showing at the bottom are years. And then in each color represents each series of bonds that you have outstanding and how much of the tax rate that they consume. Now, keep talking about some positive things about your program, but another positive is this red line has a pretty sizable gap between the bar charts. And what that represents is the $30 is as a non-unified district. That's the maximum that you could project for your tax rate. And you can see you're well below that. So like I said, certainly a positive for your community that you have tax rates lower than that maximum rate. So put a lot of numbers on this slide. So I'm gonna try to break it down into 3 sections. First section here are some savings summaries. So your taxpayers' average annual savings of $101,000 on a per home basis. This is pretty small, but that's just because you're spread across so many different properties. What both John, Jason, and I look at a lot are these present value savings, and then what percentage savings generated off of that amount of bonds. So generally, if we see a number over 5% net present value savings, it's worth giving real strong consideration to. And you can see here, we're in that 7.9 range. So certainly this one qualifies as being a very good candidate for a refunding. Down below, we show you some sources and uses and kind of what that's looked like in the past. The cost of issuance make up our cost, the rating costs. Mr. Beecher mentioned ORIC, they fall within there. The underwriter who purchases the bonds and resells them, that's that underwriter's discount. And then to the far right over here, that final kind of section, if you break it into three, are your existing debt service. That debt service is your principal and interest payments, your new principal and interest payments, and then the difference. And hence that difference is the savings that the taxpayers will be able to achieve should you take action to approve this. And then also we're able to enter the market at rates comparable to what we see today. So I'll turn over to Mr. Barrissey now for the next few slides to talk about why else is possible.
Great, thanks, Adam. Also, through this process, it's important for the district to obtain a credit rating. The district, we found out today, was confirmed their AA2 general obligation bond rating, which is phenomenal. That's 2 notches lower than the best rating you can get. And on average, an A1, which is 2 notches below U, is the average school district rating for general obligation bonds for California. So that's something to be celebrated, and congratulations to Matt and the achievements and your achievements for the financial management of the district. So congratulations on that. And that's very important because it's similar to a mortgage, as mentioned, is the higher the rating or the higher the credit score, the lower rate of interest you will pay. So that is a big key to this. And the AA2 puts you in a category where you're going to see a lot of market response and demand for the type of bonds that you'll be issuing probably shortly. So over time, this is a transaction that we actually did approve last year before the start of the pandemic. And the municipal market was very volatile at that time. So the transaction was delayed, and over time, we've seen interest rates fluctuating, but now they're in a position where you can achieve some pretty significant savings, as pointed out on that last slide. But you can see here on these 2 charts, taking a look at what we've seen over the past year or so, rates have been low, and then they peaked, and then they came back down again. So on the far right, on that bottom left chart, you can see where interest rates currently are. And, it's going to be an interesting time moving forward because you're going to have a lot of talks, as you've probably seen, of the beginning to stop buying the bond and equity purchase program, tapering, coming off, and then also the ability to monitor inflation just due to the supply chain issues that we're experiencing due to the pandemic at this point in time. So a lot of interesting dynamics in the marketplace, but one thing we do know is that interest rates are at near or at all-time lows. And you can see the second chart over there. That's the determination of, are investors willing to put their money into and buy bonds? And when you see green, that generally means that the market is more stable, good time to sell bonds. If you see the red, which was right when the COVID pandemic hit, you see red. A lot of folks brought their money out, and that was at the time that this was originally contemplated, and the market has recovered, stabilized since then to produce back to savings at above levels that we were looking at a year ago. So that's good. And looking at the pricing timeline here, as we said, the rating was received, AA2. We got that today. Congratulations. And then our goal is to post what we call the preliminary official statement, which is a prospectus for investors to take a look and purchase the bonds. And then if all goes well, the market has been what we call rallying, or interest rates dropping to your favor over the past week, this week. So we're hoping that that continues, and we'll be in a position to potentially lock in those savings next week. And that would push us to a closing in November. And then the district will receive the benefit of lower debt service payments in the future and be able to lock in those savings. So I think that concludes our general presentation, but we're obviously here to answer any questions you have on the resolution, the documents, or just the concept and anything we've talked about.
Yeah, this is Ricky. Is that 2.25% for a 30-year is what it's showing on that other slide for to be locked in going forward?
Let's see here.
The slide, next one down. Slide number 4. For the 30-year,
Yeah, so,
quarter?
Yeah, so let me explain how the pricing of bonds works. So the way that the municipal market works for, and these are what we call federally taxable, meaning that they're priced off of treasury securities. Mm-hmm. So the final maturity of these bonds is 2039, the one that is the most advantageous, that is the most cost effective, yields the most savings in the current market. So they'll be priced off of the 10-year in 2039. So the 10-year is currently a 154.
Yeah.
And then there's a spread on top of that. And that's based upon your credit rating. So the reality is that you're probably going to be looking at 270s, 280 on that longer bond. But there's going to be interest rates varying from year 1 through year 18 of 0.4 to 2.8 or something like that, depending on where market is when we sell.
Have you ever seen them drop lower than the 1.8, in the past, or is this relatively about this? I mean, the probably lowest you've ever seen them.
Yeah, so what's happened is the lowest point we've seen was right after, the COVID scenario started, where we saw the 10-year, went down to almost like a 0.36, I think we were at, maybe even a 0.2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is just, unheard of. But the difference is that then the credit spreads were also very high. So you have this point on these taxable transactions where there may have been a point in time where the baseline rates were lower, but then the credit spreads pull back because, investors kind of have their quote unquote point of, no return, where they would, not buy bonds anymore because the yields are so low. Yeah. But I think this is a good sweet spot with respect to market timing and where the rates are that, you'll get a lot of activity on it.
Nice. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, we appreciated that we received all of the actual text of the legal documents via email rather than cutting down extra trees to be able to review that.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was surely a lot.
And none of us are accountants, nor are we lawyers. But because of prior experiences and understanding of this, I believe we are ready to move forward. This is a savings to our taxpayers.
Yeah,
that's basically the bottom line. And if we can do it efficiently and as you mentioned, we had initiated this right before the pandemic struck last year. I think it was in 2020. And then I see that red line in March of 2020, and that was like the ship sank.
Yes.
So I would entertain a motion.
Well, I just want to say real quick, underneath the summary statement, that what really grabs you is the second paragraph, the refunding of expected to generate savings to the district taxpayers. That was.
Yes, so I challenge one of you to make the motion to adopt the resolution that is 3 pages long. Not quite.
I'll move to adopt resolution 21. Am I off mute? Okay. I'll move to adopt resolution 21-04, a resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Maria Bonita School District authorizing the sale and issuance of not to exceed 50 million aggregate principal amount of general obligation refunding bonds in one or more series, approving forms and authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more escrow agreements, bond purchase agreements, and continuing disclosure certificates, approving the form of one or more official statements, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents, certificates, and related actions.
Sold.
Hey, you win the speed reading race. Very good. Very well then. And who seconds that?
Flores.
Okay, Mr. Holland said moved, and Mrs. Flores seconded it to adopt resolution 21-04.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, John and Adam, too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero.
Aye, yay. And motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and Mr. Beecher for making this possible and keeping track of all of that, because it's just one more thing on the list of things to be done. So I think that concludes our action items for today. Moving on to discussion items. Item 8A, 2021-22 school year status update.
And I will take that one. I have a short presentation. It's kind of odd. It's indicative of the times, as John was mentioning in the previous item, that in October, at the October 13th meeting, we're still doing school year reopening updates. Just indicative of the year that we're in. And so I've got just some brief slides that I want to share. Get to my screen. And I'm going to use the same format, cover some of the things that we've covered before to kind of anchor to where we've been. You know, we're rounding about the end of the 9th week of school. I think day 45 is tomorrow. So it's 25% of the school year. It's amazing. And so I just want to do a quick breakdown of where we are with the in-person independent study, because that was a big issue that we had to address coming into the year. So I want to provide that update. I want to talk a little bit about case metrics related to COVID, around our COVID testing status, because we have some really exciting things to share since the last time we were talking in vague generalities, and we've got some things up and running, and I'm gonna ask Matt to chime in on that. And then I also want to discuss this AB 361, the Brown Act provisions for the virtual meetings. You may have all received 2 emails from CSBA today. So I'll cover that and I forwarded you the second one again, just in case you hadn't seen it. So it came to the top of your box. And so I'll hit that last. Just in terms of enrollment, a week ago today was our CBEDS Day, the annual Basic Educational Data Survey collection date. And you see our current enrollment, and this is as of yesterday, 16,588, little below projection, but not to a great degree in terms of coming out of where we were with COVID. And the numbers of students on independent study, when I reported this the last meeting in September, we were at about 231, and so we're 143. So we have a number of families are coming back to in-person instruction, right? And there's some reasons for that. It's hard. I mean, it's a challenge to really take that responsibility. And then we'll also talk about, where we are with our mitigation protocols. We're seeing some real positives, and so I'll address those as well. So in terms of case metrics, this is where we are in Santa Barbara County. This is off of the county website, and this is the case rates. And last fall, I was reporting this every meeting, breaking it down by area. This is a countywide rate. This at the far right of that slide is through October 7th. We're at about, I believe that number, and it doesn't reflect here because this is not a live feed. It's a little over 10, I think 10.4 new cases per 100,000 over that 7-day period. The thing that I wanted to point out, what I've got in that box there on this graph, that box denotes that on the 6th of August, right before school started, is when the county reinforced the mandatory face coverings, because we'd seen that climb through the summer. When you look back to the far left in June, we were at about one case rate per 100,000 people for several weeks there back in June, and then with the Delta variant, it picked up. And there's an effect. The effect of the face covering has brought it down, along with that, and I'll talk about vaccination rates here in a minute. But we're starting to see this level off, and so I'm very grateful, because obviously that was our biggest concern. We've been talking about this for 20 months or whatever it's been now, about putting public health at the forefront of all of our efforts. So I want to give credit to all of our entire community, but especially our school community, our staffs, our health services folks have been phenomenal. And I want to give a shout out to the presidents of our associations, Matt Harris of CSEA and Jose Segura of SMEA. We meet on this. This is really our continuing topic of conversation, and they've really been support. We sent out several tri-communications over the last few weeks on testing and making sure that we're maintaining vigilance, because now that we're seeing improvement, we want to make sure that we continue to see improvement. This is just something that the counties put up on their website. This is the daily case rate of unvaccinated versus vaccinated individuals across the county. So you see the bottom line there. I think that's blue. We're a little under 5 daily cases per 100,000 over that 7-day period. It's around 20 for unvaccinated folks. And so, so we're seeing that gap still persists. We've got about 64% of the eligible folks in the county are vaccinated at this point, are fully vaccinated. I think it's a little over 70% statewide, so we're lagging state. But again, as we continue that Swiss cheese approach of hand washing and masks and distancing to the greatest degree possible in vaccinations, have really made a difference. I share this, and this is these first 2 columns I shared at the last meeting, and this is the information that we receive around positive results through that first couple of weeks of school through the 31st of August. And this goes back to August 5th, because again, as we started to bring children back to school and we were notified that kids and adults had tested positive, that period, that test date could have gone back to the 5th of August. So we started collecting that week before. And so I've maintained this. We'll change this in the future now that we're doing testing, but just to make an apples to apples comparison that really mirrors what I shared. When you look at the difference between the 31st of August and the 7th of September, which was only 1 week, on the student side, we went from 100 positive test results that had been reported to 42 new cases in a week. In the 5 weeks since September 7th through the 12th, we had 72 cases over 5 weeks. So we're seeing that trajectory is declining, just like on the county basis. Same for staff. 7 new cases during that week from the 31st to the 7th, 15 over the last 5 weeks. And then the eligibility to return, because we monitor when students have finished their quarantine or and returned. We're seeing that return rate has actually increased. 206 out of the 214 over that period have been eligible to return, and that's partly because of what we're doing with testing. So I want to talk a little bit about COVID testing status, and I'm just going to invite Matt Beecher to come off of mute and interrupt me at any time, because as we talk about this element here, I'm not getting that. See if I can get this to come up. what I'm going to share with you, this is what has been shared with our staff and families. This is our partnership. When we met last September, or on September 8th, we were just in the beginning phases of talking about providing end-to-end service to our staff and students. If you'll recall, the California Department of Public Health had made a commitment to school districts that they would provide support, but we hadn't, and that was back in August, we hadn't seen the release of any testing, any movement forward. Matt and I and Sean Chenoweth and Patricia McKnight in purchasing were getting besieged by emails about, hey, we can help you, we can help you. I take full credit for having received an email from this organization and passed it on to Matt and Sean and Patricia, and they did all the work from there, all the legwork in getting this up and running. So I hit forward, they did all the work. But what this is our program partnering with this Inspire Diagnostics, which is the lab, Heal 3000, which offers the service to provide convenient COVID-19 testing with no out-of-pocket costs. And so this is what the actual registration looks like. And I'll share these details again on the next slide. With your student or a staff, we're collecting this information and directing folks to testing sites that are open Monday through Friday at these 4 sites. And so an individual who presents to the site, whether they've got a symptom or they've been a close contact, if you have health insurance, you show proof of health insurance. If not, you're not required. Regardless, there's no out-of-pocket cost. That's all on the backside that Heal and Inspire do on the clearing the data through CDC and Health and Human Services, but our individuals are getting tested immediately. So I'll get into a little detail when we get back on the slide.
Luke,
Yeah, go ahead.
At the 4 sites, are the actual people being tested coming onto the campus, or is there a specific area? Or
Let me go through this, and then I'm going to turn
okay.
Because Matt really he's been the boots on the ground on this. But just to kind of give you a general overview, again, it's this free, convenient testing of students and employees. Okay. The protocol is a rapid test, the antigen test, combined with a confirmatory PCR test. Both samples get collected at the same time, and that PCR confirmation test is important because it's a greater level of diligence. We have had some of the antigen tests where indicated negative, but the PCR confirmation test indicated positive. That's not it's a very low percentage, but that's the value of that confirmation test.
All right.
And tell me, what does PCR stand for?
Matt?
I would have to look that up because I don't keep it memorized. But in the next few seconds while Luke is finishing, I'll get that answer for you. And I'll chime in a little bit to kind of talk more about the process and share a couple scenarios to demonstrate how valuable this is to our work.
I can't see anybody.
Did we lose them?
Everybody's locked up on mine.
Were you able to hear me describe that?
No.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
I'll start again. I'm going to get an answer to PCR and what exactly that means. And I have a couple scenarios I want to demonstrate for you to kind of describe how valuable this is while Luke kind of finishes his part on the scheduling and all that other stuff. So give me just a second. I'll give you that answer and I'll share some more information about our testing program.
Okay.
So I'll go through and finish this slide and then we'll circle back to that if that's okay. So the 4 sites designated are these: Liberty, Fessler, El Camino, Tommy Kuntz. We identified Liberty for that Arianas cluster just because it's in town and we have more folks though. And I want to say this for anybody who's listening. The city of Santa Maria has given us access to the Westgate building in the park adjacent that's adjacent to Liberty. They're allowing us to use that facility to house the testing. So gratitude to the city. I reached out to Jason Stillwell and he immediately responded and said, we'll make that happen. And then they're also doing a mobile service to each of our locations once a week. And so that individuals aren't required, students and staff that are just interested in doing periodic testing can, we have they dispatch staff to the sites on this schedule. And then there's also 2 SWAT teams that in the event that a site where it's not scheduled, where we have a positive reported case, staff is dispatched to that site to conduct close contact tracing on that location immediately. So Matt, are you ready to give us a description of PCR?
Sure. Did you have, or did you already show the dashboard screen?
No, I'm going to do that as soon as you tell this part.
Okay, sounds good. So the PCR, I'm really glad that I don't know exactly what it stands for. It's polymerase chain reaction test. So that's PCR, and it is just a more detailed and more reliable test. I believe Ryan Hopkins works for Pipeline Medical. So as Luke described, Heal 360 is kind of the clinical side of it. They're the ones that are taking the samples and processing the kits. Inspire Diagnostic is the lab side of things. They do the processing of the PCR tests. And then Pipeline Medical is the supplier that makes sure that they have all of the gloves and gowns and test kits and all of those things that they need. So that's their relationship, and that's what they bring to the table for our school sites. I think the most exciting thing, some of the exciting stories I've heard about this process, just today, we had an identified case of COVID-19 on a campus, and it was in an AM and PM setting. And so Carolyn Kleinsmith, our program specialist in charge of health services, got notification, called Kaylee, who is the lead in our area for Heal 360, who then dispatched a team to the school site immediately in time to meet with parents and students of the morning class and get them tested on their way out of class, and then meet with the parents of the PM class as they came on to get them tested as they came into class.
Wow.
That the value is in that modified quarantine, if 2 students are a close contact while wearing masks in a K-12 indoor setting, they're allowed to serve their 10-day quarantine in the classroom if you can test them twice within 10 days. We were able to start that process today so that no one missed school in those classes if they chose to be tested. Now, that's still at the discretion of the parent. They can choose not to have that occur, but they had that opportunity right there for free at the site without missing any school. And that, when we first received the email, very important process that Mr. Ontiveros initiated, gave us that email from Pipeline Medical, and they said they could do that for free. It was like, how quickly can we safely, right, knowing that we have a good commitment and a good contractual relationship, get these people on board. And so I may have some more to add when we get to the dashboard, but what I can say just as an introduction, what you'll see in that dashboard is they did arrive in Santa Maria on September the 27th with 16 LVNs. They started testing that day. That day, there are tests recorded on that dashboard, and the next day it grew and it grew. So they're very fluid and very nimble, and they're ready to work. They've been great partners so far. So thank you for the time to talk about it.
That dashboard is up right now, Matt. And this indicates the red testing that's gone on over that period of time. They came, hit the ground running.
Wow.
And we continue to have folks registering on a daily basis and hope to continue to grow that. And I'll talk about
Mr. Ontiveros. So if they choose not to have that rapid test, like this example that Matt was citing, then they do their quarantine off campus.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's I believe that's my next slide.
And did they get the PCR at this then also, as well as the rapid test at that same time if they accepted?
They do both tests. Matt, do you know what the turnaround time has been on those PCR results?
So the PCR is generally between 24 and 48 hours. And the antigen test gets texted to the phone and emailed to the email address that's entered during registration within 20 to 25 minutes.
Wow.
And so the volume of tests that were on that previous slide are important to this issue around this, what Matt mentioned, the modified quarantining, because until we had the testing in place, to your point, John, the only option we had if someone was symptomatic or was a close contact was to quarantine.
Right.
And we were quarantining, the kids get sniffles, staff members get sniffles. And that was our only option. I mean, it's been frustrating. And so, I want to go back over this because I had shared this the last time when we met in September, that this is really why we were committed to getting this up and running, was the ability to do this modified quarantining. This comes right from the public health guidelines. Quarantine recommendations for unvaccinated students, which is the majority of our students because we don't have a vaccine for under 12 yet. For exposures when both parties are wearing masks. And again, that's credit to the public health and the county public health, that masking is important as required in K-12 indoor settings. So these are the adapted guidelines are this: when both parties are wearing a mask in any school setting which students are supervised by school staff, unvaccinated students who are close contacts may undergo a modified quarantine and may continue to attend school for in-person instruction if they are asymptomatic, so without symptoms, if they continue to appropriately mask. And our kids and our school staffs have been awesome about wearing the masks. I know we're all tired of it. My wife likes it when I wear the mask because she prefers that I wear the full headgear. But as they continue to mask, to undergo at least this twice weekly testing during that quarantine period, which we can now do because we have the testing available on the sites, and continue to quarantine for all extracurricular activities at school, including sports. This is kind of the odd thing of this. And so we still have sports in suspense until we can get this daily routine worked out. So this allows us to do this modified quarantine. So to Matt's point, what happened today has happened elsewhere. It was one of the first days we had these individuals on sites. We had a class, and it was a lower grade class. So contact tracing is pretty much impossible with preschool through first grade. I mean, who's not within who remembers if they were within 6 feet of someone, right? We had 33 possible close contacts that was a result of a positive test that was reported. We were able to antigen test 26 of those students right there, and they got a negative. Otherwise, we would have sent them all home. The other 7 chose to quarantine their children at home. And I'm not going to argue with a parent who says, I feel better if I have my child at home for a couple of days, right? Because now we can maintain contact, and as the anxiety level lowers, now they can come back and have their child tested before they bring them back to school. So we've got the best of, our options are open now like they weren't before. And so that's just one example of what this availability of testing is going to allow us.
Is there something that parents sign to give permission?
It's part of that whole registration that I showed as you click through.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that, Linda. That's a great question. We sent that out through Parent Square to parents. And again, we're only 2.5 weeks into this, and you're seeing the volume of testing we're doing. We really are built. Well, I say we, Matt and Patricia and Sean and Carolyn and that fantastic team of nurses and health techs that are coordinating with these folks on a daily basis are doing a fabulous job of getting resources out, because it's too much to try and do everybody all at one time. What I likened it to, in my experience, I think as a principal, when I opened a new school and we opened the library and we had to barcode all the books, right? And you can spend weeks doing that, or you can barcode them as you check them out, right? And so that's we're kind of slowly easing into this, and it's built and building our capacity and our level of understanding. And so on that registration, if you identify that you're a student, parent of a student, then it leads you on a whole other path of authorizations that I'm authorizing. There's even an authorization that I will authorize that my child be tested without me being present. You can allow that. Which for older kids, for younger kids, as a parent, I don't know that I would have been comfortable, but maybe for my, my 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grader, And so, but that's a parent's choice. And so we're just trying to make this as available as possible. Thank you for asking. That's a great question. The other piece of this is this, the order, the health order for vaccinating school employees, you remember, came out right before school started. And this gives us an option for folks as well. And so this was the order that requires either verification of vaccination or weekly testing. And so we now have that, and it had to be in place by October 15th. So to kind of go through what our process has been since the 11th, this order was issued. HR has been collecting evidence of vaccination from staff members. As of yesterday, of our 1,921 total employees, 1,331 have provided evidence of vaccination. That's 69.2%, a little higher than the county rate. And about 254 have reported as unvaccinated, and 336 that we haven't heard from either way. So what happened is last week, those that are unvaccinated or non-respondent have been provided with information via email, just like we did when we were doing surveillance testing regarding the availability of testing. Still have the access to do the Quest at-home tests as we did with the surveillance testing. That's the PCR test. Takes time to get the results in and get them back, or the on-site testing through the schedules that we've established, or through the, until 5 o'clock in the evening at any of the 4 sites. And so those individuals are required to submit weekly testing in lieu of providing evidence of vaccination. So we'll follow up with those results, and individuals that are required to test will be required to test. If they don't test, then there will be follow-up. That becomes a condition of employment by public health order. And individuals who choose not to test, we will, not be allowed to have on campus according to the health order. And so at that point, individuals would be placed on leave without pay until either they get vaccinated or submit to testing. It's not disciplinary. They still have access to their job. It's just like similar to where an individual doesn't renew their teaching credential and you're a teacher. Yeah. We can't put you in a classroom. If you're a vehicle driver and your license is suspended, right? This is a requirement of law that's in place that we have to follow. And again, I want to recognize Matt Harris and Jose. They've really been supportive of this process. We know that at some point in time, we're going to come across someone who's going to be adamant against, and it's not an either or. It's you have to or you don't work. That's really what the public health order requires. And so that's where we are with that vaccination program. The 15th obviously is Friday. So we're narrowing down that filter, and we're starting to see some responses, and we'll continue to monitor the testing program. But because we have it available, it's going to be, again, if folks choose not to, it's their choice, but they're choosing to test, and we've got the testing available. So any questions on, that's a lot of information in a big fire hose.
I have a couple of questions about, okay, looking at a couple of slides back, the schedule that they go out to the sites, are there 2 mobile clinics, or is it just a group of people that go to the site and they work out of the health office?
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Beecher.
And the other question is, at the 4 sites that are open daily from 8 to 5, how many people are there to man those stations, or whatever you call them?
I'll ask you to respond to those questions, Matt.
Of course. So the way I know that the structure is set up is there are the 4 main testing sites that we kind of built around our junior high clusters,
right?
With the Arianas cluster being served out of the Liberty location because it's in the center of the residential areas that populate the Arianas Junior High School. So the mobile teams that are on this schedule that you see, they're all assigned to one of those clusters, and they will generally work there if they're not out working mobilely. So if they're mobilized, they'll go out and test at a school site. So it is really up to the school site to determine where they test. As we had these conversations early on in the process with Heal 360, they said we have tested in gymnasiums and libraries and NPRs, hallways, and under pop-up tents and just about everywhere. And so the very sparse guidance that we've given to school sites is we need these locations to be accessible from the front of the campus so that if you have a family with a child who is symptomatic, they can access that location without having to go through the entire campus, but is also accessible potentially from inside the campus if you have students who need to get that second test, right, in their modified quarantine. So they might already be on campus and they would also need to access it, and maintaining some form of structure around the campus perimeter. So those are the three pieces of guidance that we've kind of put out there. And our folks from Heal 360 are engaging with principals in those conversations about how best to be locating their tables. They basically work off of tables with a laptop and a hotspot and do their work right there. They bring their own supplies and they do their work right there. They pack up and they head to the next place.
So if a student or employee gets tested and they're in the system, the results are automatically go to HR or to whomever needs to monitor, especially for employees.
Sure. So that right now there's only a couple of people who get that information, primarily Sean Chenoweth and Carolyn Kleinsmith, where Mr. Chenoweth is monitoring the staff folks and following up for close contacts when notified about a positive test result. And Ms. Kleinsmith does the same for students. When she sees a positive student test, she will delegate that out to her team and make sure the close contacts are identified and exclusions and a modified quarantine option are shared with that student and their family.
Okay.
So that's how that works. Staffing wise, I believe that they have 2 folks so that they can maintain traffic. I believe when they were here at the Sousa Center, they had 2 folks downstairs. They have a QR code in the front of their station so that folks who haven't registered yet can scan that with their phone and register right away. It brings up the registration link. They can go through the process right there and get registered on the fly as they're in line to take their sample. And then the samples are taken right there. The antigen test is processed. The little kit that they use is processed right there and in place while they're working on taking the PCR sample. And then they label all of that stuff, send it to the lab if that's appropriate, and then monitor the proceeding of the antigen test so that it's read on a timely basis. And the next thing is it gets posted, right, to their system so that it sends out the notifications it needs to public health offices and also to that patient to make sure that they get the information as soon as it's available.
Okay, and so the times that they're at, like when they are going to be here at Sousa Center tomorrow at 1 o'clock. They're here from 1 until
about 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm.
Okay, a couple of hours.
I don't believe they leave customers in line.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had a substantial response when they were here last week.
Okay.
I know the actual schedule is a Monday through
Friday.
That's when
our students are in school, and I know that this is basically to keep our kids in school. So is there a weekend clinic, or is that something Cottage Urgent Care has to take care of, and it's not a part of this rigor?
And again, I'm going to defer to Matt. He's been in on most of the planning conversations. I did ask him this question, so I know he knows the answer to it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I have an answer in process on that question. A lot of the questions that we're getting right now, we have answers in process.
Okay.
So we rolled this out September 27th. We took our first couple of samples that day. It's grown since then. So what we're hoping to do is on that first day, that first week was to just, kick the tires, maybe drive this thing around the block once and see how it's working. That next week, starting on Tuesday, not on Monday, But on Tuesday, we started rolling out to most sites. We didn't get to all of them. This week, we're fully active on each of those sites. Next week, we'll be rolling in that mandatory testing for staff. So these are all things that aren't necessarily shocks to the system, but they're a growing impact. And so we need to, every Friday, we meet with our partners from Heal 360 and from Pipeline Medical, and then kind of debrief, how did that week go and what's coming up next? And so we'll hear how this week has gone, plan for next week in that call. We spend about 20, 25 minutes on the phone with them. We'll see how it rolls out with folks potentially selecting Heal 360 for their weekly sampling, get feedback on that Friday, and then we'll talk about additional services, right? What additional services is there the capacity for? Again, the focus that we've had from the start has been, how do we keep people in their roles in the in-person learning environment, right, to the greatest extent possible based on the guidelines. And so the folks that we're going to be testing this week and next are folks who are directly involved in that learning environment. We want to make sure we have that process working very smoothly before we start looking at what about weekends, right? Because I think that's the next thing. And then what do you do with all that weekend time?
Yeah.
There's a lot of time in there. And so before we start engaging in those conversations, I want to make sure we have this part nailed. And because I don't want to cause a shock to the system before we get it right. And then we don't know which problem we need to address first. So that's right now how far my headlights are running out on this as we run down this road, is to make sure we get that stuff done right.
Thank you.
But my answer when I get those good questions, like yours, Ms. Flores, is not at this time, but stay tuned, right? Not at this time, but stay tuned.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Poquito y poquito.
Let's see. So I'm going to skip back ahead because the last topic I want to cover is the one that I mentioned earlier, is this AB 361 and the Brown Act provisions for virtual meetings. And I'll just say up front that this was a change. You'll remember at the September 8th meeting, I mentioned when we were reviewing the calendar that we knew that the provision for flexibility was going to expire September 30th. And so we kind of pulled the board. If this is still an option, would you prefer to continue virtually? And we concurred at that time, yeah, because we didn't know what we were going to face. On the 16th, this AB 361 was enacted. And so I'm going to go over and I'm going to ask you that I'm going to pass around to you all. I think I may have shared this in last week's Friday update, but this is the summary from Griffith and Thornburg, who's county counsel for the county ed office. So everybody in the county got this. And so this was probably the most concise descriptor. Because like most of the things that have come out of the governor's office over the last 20 months, there was a lot of gray in there, and there's been a lot of gray in this. And so these points that I want to cover here are directly from this memo. So again, at the onset of the pandemic, Governor Newsom issued a series of executive orders that suspended provisions of the Brown Act for teleconferencing. And this isn't just for schools, it's for all public entities, city councils, board of supervisors, because of the pandemic. Those orders expired on the 30th. And so these are the conditions for AB 361 that I want to get in front of you tonight to prepare for where we're going to go going forward. And so it has extended some of those provisions containing the executive orders relative to virtual meetings. So relative to public comments, like we did tonight, public must have the opportunity to make comments in real time. So I appreciate our brave pioneers that participated tonight, and making the comment. And thank you to Brian Rickey for inventing a system on short turnaround so that we can collect those comments and get folks in. The public must have the ability to access the meeting via call-in or an internet-based platform like Zoom. And so we did both tonight, so that works so far. Specific to virtual meetings, there's no action necessary to meet virtually like we did tonight. right? So the requirement is really in continuing to meet virtually. And so to continue meeting virtually, the local health officials must recommend social distancing. And I've got a link here, and I'd link to this to the agenda that was on the on this week's meeting. This is the order from Public Health recommending their recommendation to continue to access those the provisions, the flexibility within the Brown Act. Because, you know, we don't have the same level of control that we do over the public that we do. And I would say, and I didn't bring them, I ran some metrics about the numbers of people that have been logging into our meetings on YouTube. There has not been a meeting where we have had less than 300 people stepping in. And I don't know that we've ever had 300 people in person. So there's some real, just like in you know, what we've learned in teaching and learning, there's some real value to what we learned during the pandemic. There's some real value. I think that when and if hopefully we get to the point where we start bringing folks back in, we're still going to want to do some kind of broadcast to the community. Right? Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I mean, we're all excited to be here till 10 or 11 o'clock, you know, one Wednesday a week. It's not generally the case for the public, right? I just think of poor Ricardo, you know, he's getting up and going to school in the mornings, and Ricky, you're still getting up at 4:30 to go to work the night after a board meeting.
We don't want to deny this. We don't want to deny people that opportunity to be here till 10 or 11 o'clock with us.
And so grateful to County Public Health did authorize that local recommendation. And this is right out of, it's on the second page. I think I may have highlighted it on there. Or maybe it was the one I sent you last week. That within 30 days of the first virtual meeting after October 1st, and this was the clarification in the CSBA thing today, because the CSBA, the first directive that came out today said, you have to have a resolution passed before you can meet. Well, that was kind of a vacuum. How do you do that and then have your first meeting, right? And so it's been clarified, and to you know, to this firm's credit, they articulate it pretty clearly. So within that 30 days of the first virtual meeting after October 1st, which is 30 days after, and today's our first. So within 30 days, pass a resolution extending the provisions for an additional 30 days. And so I put this item last on this piece of discussion to really, this is our opportunity, because I didn't want to just presume that we're going to continue and post a resolution. If the board is comfortable and clear on these provisions, then we can schedule a resolution for it. Because fortunately for us, in October, we do have 2 meetings scheduled. Yeah. So we can bring an item to the meeting on the 27th, which would extend that provision for another 30 days. And actually what you read, and if you get a chance to read what I forwarded to you, CSBA has actually backed up and said, you don't really have to have a resolution either, as long as you've got a concurrence that you want to continue. But I think just to have documentation, we'll use their resolution. So I'll bring that on the 27th. That will open that up for us for that additional 30-day period. If the board is in agreement or in consensus.
So does that then lock us into the end of November for virtual?
Right.
And we would revisit that after CSBA or whatever our next meeting is. Organizational meeting, actually, probably, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'd have a November meeting,
but not before the 26th or 27th. Probably.
We'll have to figure out. You know, I'll use Matt to help me figure out the math so we can keep them.
Yeah, and I just asked because I think that the high school board acted on that first one you're describing and had a special meeting, and there was confusion as to what the purpose was, and so. I think too that we need to make sure that we really elucidate what the process is, so there's not any kind of confusion or misunderstanding about the intent or the purpose for us.
And I think that's why CSBA clarified that today.
Right.
And said, well, it doesn't really require a resolution. We recommend it. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
But so for now, if we got consensus, then we'll bring a resolution back on the 27th to continue to keep that option open for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, with the hope that, you know, maybe this is something that goes away sometime and we can get back to doing things in person. Okay.
And then
sounds good.
Call us on the phone.
And that's all I've got for school reopening. How often on school reopening do we talk about scheduling board meetings? It's the first time, it's like there's a new first every week.
There is. Wow.
Okay, and item 8, I acknowledge receipt of the status update regarding the 2021-2022 school year as presented with thanks. And item 8B, the first reading of policy title updates. And I want to emphasize the word title.
Titles only. And so I want to give a little background on this. And again, this is my my ode to Kristen, because she has been fabulous about working with CSBA, because although we went to the online board meetings in the fall of 2019, this actually, when I was doing a little research, this actually went back. We signed an agreement, the policy manual maintenance with CSBA. It was in July of 2019. So ahead of going online, we'd already started this work when Peggy Perdue was still working in the superintendent's office. She had done some research on where our policies were relative to the CSBA models. And you'll recall, I brought the governance policies over the summer, a number of policies that were outdated. We got many in this listing, and this is the attachment, that go back to the mid 80s, early 80s, that have not been modified. So what this first reading is, and so we've got different flavors of what needs. We have some that the titles don't match and the content doesn't match. Right. And the content doesn't match because their times have changed, laws have changed. Yeah. And so again, this is Kristen and I, well, I'm going to give Kristen credit. She's done all the brain work and the leg work on this to really think about how can we do this strategically. Because if we change the content and the titles don't match, how do we know how they relate, right? And the titles are really tied to the numbering. The series is built into the CSBA design. And so this first reading tonight is just consideration of changing the titles of these existing policies, because those titles don't match with the corresponding CSBA model policy title for that policy or administrative regulation number. So when I bring this back for a second reading and action, it's only going to be to change the titles. Yeah. Then the next phase will be we'll bring back and change the content, because the title will already be appropriate. Okay. And Kristen explained that to me about 10 times. So I'm going to look at her and see, do I understand it correctly? Okay.
How'd you look at it?
Yeah, really. Yeah. She wrote, I just read the notes right off the back here. Now, and again, this is going to be something that will take some time, right? Because and this is a hard thing as a governance team. This is a hard thing to do, is stay current on this stuff. We've received quarterly updates from CSBA for decades, but it's a lot of work to get into it. And so, but we've got the work going now where we've got to have the policy to match the work as well. And as you read through the titles, some of them are subtle changes, some of them are pretty significant. Are big changes in law that occurred a long time ago that we still have a policy connected to that. And it's not that we're doing anything illegal, it's just that we're not current with what the legal requirements are in terms of our documentation. We're going through a federal program monitoring review this spring. That's a big part of the monitoring review, is auditing. Do your policies indicate that you are doing all the things that the federal government requires you to do, just as an example. And so it's important work to stay current on. It's almost, and I'll say this, having worked in 5 districts, it's almost impossible to stay current. And that's why we really committed to to partnering with CSB on this policy review. They gave us a big head start. It really got slowed by COVID. Kristen has been waiting patiently to get back into this. And so now we're poised and ready to roll.
Way to hold the carrot out.
Yes, sir.
So, Ms. Trontiveros, I just had one quick question. There's on this 1 BP 4119 Code of Ethics change to professional standards. I know that there was a code of ethics subheading and BP and AR and a couple of the other, like in the 2000 series and I think maybe 3000. Is that going to be similarly changed to, but it would, the name of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So especially in the 4000 series, the 4000 series, that's all personnel and they're broken down into categories. Everything that's a 4100 is specific to certificated personnel.
Right. But there was there was an administration one too. There was a 21.
42s are classified, 43 is management. And so there's often a replication of the same concept.
It'll be the same name change is all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good question. So I just wanted to bring that as explanation because when we bring it back, it won't be changing any content. We'll still need to go back and address the content, but it'll get our titles squared up. Almost think of it like, as your remodel, you got to do it in the right phases or you wind up taking out a weight-bearing beam and nothing good ever happens.
Anything else?
That's it.
I will acknowledge receipt and the first reading of the identified board policies
Cool.
and administrative regulations.
You're muted, Linda. You're muted.
I will acknowledge receipt. As to the review and first reading of the identified board policies and administrative regulations. I could never talk as fast as John did, never. And return the item to the next regularly scheduled board meeting for further discussion and action. And will that be on October 27th or at the November?
I believe we could do that on the 27th. Generally, we bring those back as consent, and this one, because there really isn't content, I would intend to just bring it on a consent list.
All right. And with that, are there any board reports? Anybody doing anything exciting?
All right. So a few months ago, some of our El Camino students made a presentation to the board regarding priorities for learning and further education. And they shared about things like bullying, our LGBT community, and the desire to learn more about their own history as well as the cultures of others. So I'm excited to share some current events related to addressing some of the concerns of our students. By now, many of you may be familiar that October 11th has been officially declared Indigenous Peoples Day. And this is the first year that marks the first time that a US president has officially recognized Indigenous Peoples Day. President Biden issued a proclamation on Friday to observe this October 11th as a day to honor Native Americans, their resilience, and their contributions to American society throughout history, even as they faced assimilation, discrimination, and genocide spanning generations. This move shifts focus from Columbus Day, the federal holiday celebrating Christopher Columbus. There are no set rules on how one should appreciate the day, says Van Elven, a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe from South Dakota, that it's about reflection, recognition, celebration, and an education. Another exciting item that takes place on October the 11th is National Coming Out Day. And this is something that I've been learning about, and it's in honor of National Coming Out Day, which is a campaign organized by the Human Rights Campaign. You might recognize their blue stickers with a equality sign that's in yellow. And it's meant to celebrate those who have come out that are members of the LGBTQ+ community. And that takes a lot of bravery. And so according to the organization, they say, we commend you because every person who speaks up changes the hearts and minds and creates new advocacy for equality. And this is an issue that our El Camino students were also addressing as an area of concern, particularly around bullying against the LGBT community. Another exciting development that's taken place is the requirement of ethnic studies at all public high schools. So this requirement already exists at four-year universities. It also exists at community colleges. And according to an Associated Press article, here are some of the things that make this a requirement. So to educate us, So this makes California the first in the nation to list ethnic studies as a graduation requirement for all public high school students. The new law requires all public schools in the state to offer at least one ethnic studies course starting in the 2025-2026 school year, and requires students graduating in 2029-2030 school year to have completed one semester course in the subject. I'm really excited to share that the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District, the district that I work for, already has this requirement in place for current freshmen. So every current freshman leaving our district at Pioneer Valley, Santa Maria High School, as well as Rigetti, will be required to take one of these courses. The ethics studies movement has roots in California, where students protested in the late 1960s at San Francisco State and UC Berkeley to demand courses in African American, Chicano, Latino, Asian American, and Native American studies. Several of California's largest school districts are already ahead of the curve, such as LAUSD, which already has this requirement in place. Schools in San Francisco have already had this requirement since 2015. And other states have taken a different approach. For example, in Oregon is developing ethnic studies standards for its social studies curriculum, and beginning this year requires the subject in K-12 curriculum. Last year, Connecticut approved a law requiring all high school students to offer courses in Black and Latino studies by the fall of 2020. According to the AP article, educators say it's fitting that California has taken the lead in ethnic studies legislation, and also long overdue. More than 3/4 of California's 6 million public school students are students of color. State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, has praised ethnic studies legislation as a way to help students of color see themselves reflected in what they learn, and also to learn about their own histories. The legislator who created the legislation also acknowledges that America's wider discussion on race and racism since the murder of George Floyd last year makes for such a curriculum even more relevant today. So I'm really proud of our El Camino students, as well as students throughout our district, who are educating us as board members about what their concerns are and how we can address their concerns. Another issue that I wanted to raise the awareness of for those that might not be familiar is that the middle of September was the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. That's the middle of September, the 15th of September, and it goes into the middle of October. And so what I wanted to do is share some excerpts from the CSBA, the California School Board Association. We as board members get some of the latest research and best practices. And so I wanted to highlight some of the key things that they brought up around how to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month and how we can improve our work as school boards. So in the article, it says, Californians Together Executive Director Martha Hernandez said that National Hispanic Heritage Month, which lasts from September 15th to October 15th, is an excellent time to explore the history and culture of Latino people. As with other themed months, such as Pride or Black History Month, however, it's important not to isolate the exploration of Latino history and culture into one month during the year, but instead to integrate it authentically into the curriculum throughout the school year. Quote, for school board members, it's at the policy level. Having these policies and these practices, and then providing the resources and the professional learning about all the different cultures that exist in the school, Hernandez states. We're talking about school climates and campuses that are affirming, inclusive, and safe. That means that school doesn't tolerate comments that are anti-bilingual or anti-immigrant or racist, and that the teachers can intervene with positive messages, and that there are student clubs and activities encouraging the development of biliteracy, etc. Some of the ways in which local education agencies can engage youth and families is through literature that reflects students' identities and experiences in the curriculum, discussing critical issues both past and present, highlighting historical and local, everyday people who have played important roles in the Latino community, encouraging biliteracy programs and delivering instruction that is culturally responsive and incorporates and builds upon a child's home language. So I'm excited to see that our school district is already embracing some of these things, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can enhance the work. One of the things that I'm noticing as a school board member is I'm noticing I get to hear a lot of from the adults in education, which I think is outstanding because adults like educators, counselors play a critical role in the education of our students. But I want to hear more from our students. And so particularly, I would love to start with our middle school students. We started with El Camino a few months ago, but I would really be excited about hearing more from what are our Fester students thinking, right? As well as students that are our middle schools. And why not work our way down to the elementary schools? You know, I want to know what are their concerns. I want to know what do they feel we can do to improve their education? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? What should we continue doing? So I would love to hear from our students. And then after we hear from our students, I would also be excited to hear more from our parents. Today, we heard some excellent comments. What's happening? What are our parents seeing? What are they experiencing? These are things that many of us do not see. And so I would love to hear more from our families, either through public comment or by, say, some of our DLAG groups, for example, where they can present to us and share, hey, these are our concerns, and this is what we feel can be improved. So I'm looking forward to seeing these possibilities, these possible challenges as opportunities. And I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing from more of our families in our school board meetings. And lastly, I'm excited to hear an update regarding district elections. I believe that's going to be coming up in our next school board meeting. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of those updates and what that's looking like, because I know that that's an issue of concern for many of our community members now that voting will take place in districts for future elections like school board. And I'm excited to work with district members, with teachers, with community members, with students to see how we can prepare our students for the new ethnic studies requirement that is taking place at the state level. So thank you all very much for all your attention and your care to improve the education of our students.
Mrs. Lars?
Did a little visitation with another teacher on one of our students that had some surgery, doing very, very well.
And then I just had a question. There was another student who needed larger crutches and like an actual knee scooter to get around. Yeah. And so I tried lots of various places, but couldn't think of any other ideas on, except for the segunda or the secondhand store to see if, you know, they're already available. But I just wanted to just publicly say, you know, do we have a connection to that kind of equipment for students? It's just a question because the need came up.
I think the outreach is there, right? I mean, we've got JDX, we've got other suppliers, we've got a couple of orthotists, prosthetists in town. So maybe that's something.
We have initiated, I mentioned earlier today, Carolyn Kleinsmith is our program specialist for health services. Absolutely. If you can get me the information, we can get on that.
I didn't even think of her because I'm thinking only COVID at that particular time.
No.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But the children are doing very well.
Both Mrs. Flores and I had an opportunity last week through the Santa Barbara County School Board Association to visit the new CTE center that Santa Maria Joint Union High School District has officially opened this year and has in use. And I must say I was very impressed with the facility. It was exciting to actually see students in there. They really only have the diesel mechanics and building
Technology, the drills.
and with technology, and then the egg portion they have, they're already harvesting pumpkins and things such as that, and will distribute those. But the students were, I mean, they were working and engaged, and the facility, they have a state-of-the-art kitchen when they bring on that portion. And all I can say is I hope the state, in its infinite wisdom, will continue to provide the funding that is necessary for those kinds of programs and for the programs that we are trying to bring in at earlier grade levels. At one point in time in my career, they were very popular and well supported, and our students had those options, and then the funding went away and voila. So now we're back, and it's a big interest, and I can certainly see the value for our students, the ones who think they're not that academic, they don't have an interest in, you know, what college might mean. They don't realize how much math and reading is required to do most of those kinds of things. And they do it because they're interested in it. So we need to tap into their interests, and from there, they will acquire the skills. So it was very exciting to see that, and to see, you know, how it is beginning to develop, and it is just beginning. And then on Thursday, we had our regular school board, county school board meeting, and as you know, those of us who had attended the visitation were very excited to just comment about that. And then there was some discussion about the new legislation regarding virtual meetings and the requirements. And of course, COVID is still at the top of everybody's list of concerns. So it's a busy time. Mr. Ontiveros.
Just a couple of quick things while I've been sitting here. We got a text from Javier Cavazos, who's our coordinator of maintenance and operations. He has met with Mrs. Alvarez over at Fairlawn already to address the issue that the parent addressed this morning, so earlier this evening. So I appreciate that. We got that in the works. That is, you know, if you've been to Fairlawn, Mary is so narrow, and it really is worthy of, yeah. So there's some great recommendations there. We'll circle back and make sure that we address those issues. As far as the comment at Tommy Kunst and the bully button, I had talked to Dr. Williams. He has been working with Dr. Zimmerman on identifying that particular source to get that out there as one of many things. You know, again, just like with COVID, there's layers of things that have to transpire in order to really, you know, to shift that climate and culture. You know, mentioning the CTE program, you'll recall in the July meeting, we covered our college career readiness plan. We're on the other side of that, building that foundation for that bridge. And so, you know, Mrs. Dutra, Mrs. Loftus, and Mrs. Cameron have been working not only with the high school district, but with Hancock to really make sure that we're articulating those outcomes so that we are providing those multitude of opportunities for our kids. Because it's, I mean, I say this often, the value of a K-12 education can only be, you know, measured against what happens the day after you leave high school, right? And there are some great opportunities out there. You're right, Linda. It's I didn't get an opportunity to go out, but I did talk to Antonio Garcia the next day.
Yeah.
I said, I expect an invitation the first day that culinary arts program's out there, because I'm going for the food. And so I'll make sure that we get that opportunity to get out. And then I would like to turn it over to Bijou for just a minute to give some update on the hiring fair that was held here Friday and Saturday. Hopefully you got to see Nora Vargas from HR on KSBY on the Friday news. She represented us well. You know, the mantra is everyone's a recruiter. And so Bijou, if you kind of give an update on how that worked and what we got planning going forward.
It would be my pleasure. I just want to thank the entire Santa Maria Bonita School District for really making it everyone is a recruiter effort, from creating posters that we have, banners at our schools and our middle schools now, letting our community know that we're hiring. My HR team created a one-stop shop, a job seeker expo on Friday the 8th and Saturday the 9th. We had about 300 individuals come to attend that job seeker expo. We had 284 sign in. We offered employment to 104 because they came in, they tested, they passed the test, they interviewed, And we have started them on the hiring process by providing them with their live scan information, which we now pay for their live scan and also their TV assessment. We have another 17 that have passed testing, but are pending interviews. Those are being scheduled as we speak. Well, not right now. I don't think it's happening tonight anymore, but during the day, we are scheduling those interviews. We had people in the interview room until 7 o'clock both evenings. And then we have about 54 more that have to come in and finish testing. But if we want to look at the people that we've offered positions to, and we consider them hired because we told them and we welcomed them and we had lanyards and face masks for them. We had a nurse come in and apply, so that is in the works. We had an LVN come in and apply, and that is in the works. We have 7 health assistant substitutes, some of those who are individuals actually out in the community that are pursuing nursing or LVN careers and are looking to stop full-time jobs elsewhere to serve as substitutes for us so that they can get their education finished. We hired 36 student supervision aides. We have 15 food service workers that we've hired, 17 bilingual instructional assistants, 10 special ed instructional assistants, 7 custodial subs that we have in the works, and then also 12 certificated substitute teacher candidates. We were actually, even from one of those, able to fill the science position for the second half of the year. So we're very excited. The hard work paid off, but now it's even harder work getting everybody in and getting it finished. We will be doing another one of these at a satellite location for one of our clusters. We were going to do that the last week of October, but instead we're going to do it between the week, after the week of Veterans Day and before the week of Thanksgiving. We're going to do a community job fair at one of our junior high schools. And then we intend to do another Job Seeker Expo in January, and then making this at minimum twice a year event. I will also say that we had great success from the advertisement efforts, and Maggie White was a clear champion in that. She made sure that it was out on Facebook, and then everybody was sharing it. We had about 3,000 hits on our advertisements out there, so it was money well spent. And these ideas came from a variety of individuals, including my team, but also from instructional services, IT, business. I mean, it's really a district-wide event, so I just want to thank everybody. But the Job Seeker Expo was the brainchild of my personnel clerk twos, and they really did an outstanding job, and they're also feeling a great deal of pride, and I'm very proud of them. And like I said, it's just a matter of getting the individuals now to complete that hiring process. And I liked what Luke said on Friday when he sent me pictures, because I was at the Cal Poly job fair at that time, was if you build it, they will come. And it was definitely rewarding to see members of our community coming out to do, many of them said they wanted to give back to the community, wanted to give back to the schools that they attended. And it was just really, really a uplifting event. I can tell you just from personal work in the interview process on both Friday evening and all day Saturday, when I say we have 36 student supervision aides, 15 food service workers, X number of custodian subs and bilingual instructional assistants, some people interviewed for 3 or 4 positions. So it's what was the position that they're most interested in, but many of them will also serve as subs when they're able to. So it's about getting our people in, and I just want to thank you for everybody who spread the word.
That is really fabulous news. I am very happy to hear that, as we all are. And thank you all for your very, very hard work and the dedication in making that happen.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and just the last thing I'll mention, it's kind of come around so quickly that we will be designating the December meeting as the board organizational meeting. We might have that item as early as the next meeting, if not the meeting in November.
All right.
And will we have updates on calendars discussions at that meeting then, or before?
Mr. Holland said Matt Beecher and I had an opportunity to meet with Jose Segura yesterday, and we presented our calendar where we presented a week in March as a set spring break. We also went a little bit deeper into December so that school will end June 1st with, yes, and June 2nd, Friday would be the teacher duty-free day for end of the year. And so we will be, we said that we would present that, and we're waiting for Mr. Segura to give us a copy of his as well.
Thank you.
So we'll be able to talk to that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
With no further
Thank you.
business, at 8:10, I declare